There are many times in life we see what we want to see, but the Lord tells us to keep our eyes focused on Him. His Word is the lamp to our feet and the light to our path. Member of the Grand Ole Opry with #1 hits like Rose-Colored Glasses, John Conley was born on a tobacco farm in Kentucky. By the age 10, John had begun singing and playing guitar and later sang tenor in a barbershop quartet. His emphasis has always been on the songs of the lives of everyday, hardworking people and sharing the message of Jesus. This is his story. This is today's Nashville. This is Faith. John, what a blessing it is to sit down with you today here in Nashville. We were invited to the Opry on June 3rd, and it was such a wonderful evening. And I remember you walking out on stage, and you started talking about Jesus. And I looked at my husband, and I said, and he knew exactly what I was thinking. Right. I said, I have got to find out, who represents John, because I wanted you to be on our show. You really have an amazing platform on the Opry, and then you do go up there and share Jesus with the crowd.
Absolutely, for a lot of reasons, and I've been doing it for some time now, because like so many other people, if you listen to the news for over 15 seconds at a clip, you realize what trouble our world is in and our country is in, and consequently we ourselves are in. And I'm convinced that the only answer for that is for us to turn back to our Creator and get Him involved in our everyday lives. So I'd share that not only at the Opry, but I still do a lot of live shows on the road, up to 60 in a year's time, and so we do it there as well.
I just think it's wonderful. We have a mutual friend, and he's always calling me up. It's Frank, and he's been on our show too. And he's like, Terry, what? Here's somebody. And the other day I was talking to him, and I said, we have John Conley coming on the show, and he's like, John's a friend of ours, and I'm like, Frank, you've kept him a secret from me. And but what a blessing it was to connect with you. I just called and got in touch with you, and so, but it's such a blessing to have you. I want to take you back to the beginning. Okay. Where you were raised and how you got into music.
Well, I'm from Versailles, Kentucky, which is now basically a suburb, you might say, of Lexington, 12 miles from Lexington. Raised on a farm there that I still have. I still operate a farm that I was raised on, and I was raised in a house that was built in 1794. George Washington was president when that house was built, so we still have that. But I moved to Tennessee in 1971 after having been involved in several other professions besides the farm. Raised on a farm again until I was through my teen years, my high school years, and worked a lot on the farm. My dad was really into it in a big way. Farming, I consider a career. From farming, I went out of high school into the funeral profession, of all things, because I had a friend who worked there part-time, and he talked about it incessantly and just really piqued my curiosity as much as anything else. But I indeed started working part-time alongside him at the local funeral home, and I learned more about serving people and helping people doing that than I could have with any other, going to college or
Now,
or
were
whatever.
You a believer then, or?
Yes, I was saved at the age of 9. I went forward during a revival at our church in Versailles, and accepted Christ at that point, and was involved in my home church all the time I lived at home. The funeral profession was, again, something that and I'm still licensed to do it. I don't practice, of course, but I could if I wanted to or needed to. And from the funeral profession into broadcasting, radio. Radio is what brought me to Nashville. I got my first job in radio at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
I'm going to stop you right there. So you went from the funeral home to broadcast. How did that, I mean, what?
Well, I really was sidetracked into the funeral home, into the funeral profession, because my plan all through high school was to go into broadcasting. I was going to go to UK, University of Kentucky, major in whatever the radio arts department would have been, and then go into radio. That was my plan. But I got, again, sidetracked into the funeral home, although I was supposed to do that. It was a move that I was supposed to make.
You helped a lot of people grieving and...
Sure, and we also did in those days ambulance service. We're talking in the 60s now. In those days, especially in small towns, funeral homes were the ambulance services most of the time as well. So we were helping sick people and wreck victims and all of that, emergency victims with the ambulance service as well. So we're helping in two different fronts. But I still had that old itch for broadcasting after I'd been at the funeral home for 6 years. And I decided I'm either going to get on into the funeral profession as an owner somewhere or scratch this other itch. And so I picked up the phone, got a job at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and spent 7 years altogether in radio. And 7 of those 9 years in radio were in Nashville at WLAC. The only reason I moved to Nashville was because I got the job at WLAC Radio. I didn't come here for music. Music up until that point had just been a hobby.
Now, were you married at this time? Or?
No, I didn't marry until I was on the backside of 30.
Backside of 30.
Yeah.
So you have a very distinguished voice. I mean, everybody, you know, you see the comments, love your voice. So when you were in broadcasting, you were on the radio announcing and?
Yes, and radio has helped me in so many different ways as far as the music profession is concerned, including the way I use my voice, because if you're using your voice to speak into a microphone where nobody can see you, you have to use your voice in order to be understood and, you know, to emote, to put the emotion out there and so forth. And that influenced the way I use my voice to sing later.
You know, it's interesting, radio. I did radio a little bit years ago, and it was so nice because you didn't have to worry about what you look like or what you had on or anything. And
I've always said I've got the perfect face for radio. It works just really well for radio. And I was never interested in doing television, actually, for a lot of different reasons.
Well, you know, God took you from the radio to the music, and we are going to talk about that when we come back.
Okay.
John, you went from the radio to being on the radio to a country music star. How did that happen?
Very slowly. I moved to Nashville in '71, as I've mentioned before, and I worked for a station. I was hired to do a news block. I did the morning news block where you sit and read news for 4 hours at a time. News talk radio was relatively new in 1971, especially in the Nashville area, but relatively new all over the country. So I spent a year doing that, and then the station changed formats to rock and roll, of all things, from talk radio to rock and roll on the AM station. And I became music director for that AM station, and I did an MOR show on WLAC FM, playing Montevante and Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and a lot of instrumentals and so forth. But I started writing a little bit after I'd been in town for a couple of years. And I during the rock and roll days, I worked with a guy who knew everybody in town. He'd been here longer than I had. He knew all the people on Music Row. And so I started writing, and he could pick up the phone and get me an appointment with whomever I needed to pitch those songs to. And of course, I was doing my own demos, which I recorded in the production room of the radio station. Guitar voice, just a very simple demo. They never wanted the songs when I would pitch them, but they always wanted to know who was singing. And after a few years of that, we finally had the first offer to record. I ended up recording for what was then ABC Records, had our first hit with Rose-Colored Glasses, which is a song I wrote along with a friend of mine at the radio station. And that song helped get me that first recording contract.
Let's talk about that song.
Okay.
What inspired you?
I was in a relationship that was not working out to my satisfaction. And so the idea was born of that failed relationship. And it started, when I started writing it, I called it Love-Colored Glasses. And then I thought of the old catchphrase, rose-colored glasses, and changed it promptly to that. And I wrote the first two verses and the chorus of the song, played what I had of it for my friend who was a newsman at the station. Name was George Baber. And he got all excited about it. I thought I was through with it after two verses. He started writing what we turned into the third verse, which gives one some hope that this relationship might turn around and work out. Of course, as I say, it never did.
Can I put you on the spot? And
Sure.
could you sing just a verse or a chorus of that? Or
These rose-colored glasses that I'm looking through show only the beauty, 'cause they hide all the truth. Chorus.
I love it.
Thank you.
It's one of my favorite songs.
Well, thank you very much. It has become a standard, and of course it is our signature song. And I don't do it every Opry performance, but I do it at obviously every live show we do on the road.
So after Rose-Colored Glasses, what was next?
Well, the next, Rose-Colored Glasses, although our most popular song, stopped at 7 on the national charts. That's as high as it got. Most people think it was the #1 record. And I love the story of this because it underlines how unimportant #1 and how meaningless it can be. I've always said if every song could be as popular as Rose-Colored Glasses and become a standard like it has, I'd take 7 every time. But the record that followed Rose was a song called Lady Lay Down, which did go #1. The reason it went #1 and Rose didn't is because Rose bicycled its way around the country from region to region. And to have a #1 record, all the radio stations have to take a song up their individual charts at the same time. And that's what they did with the follow-up to Rose. All stations played it at the same time, and it became a #1 record.
Well, I love that song too, but I go back to the number 7.
Yeah.
7's a great number.
It's
perfect.
a great number.
It's a perfect number.
Exactly.
So, Lady Lay Down, did you write that? Or?
No, I didn't. The only two I've written of my hits is Rose-Colored Glasses and Backside of 30, which was the very first release we ever had in 1976. That's when I started recording in 76, but it didn't make it nationally. We had that and 2 other songs before Rose. Rose would have been our last release, no doubt. They would have probably released me from the label had it not hit, but it did.
What inspired you with Backside of 30?
Backside of 30, you would think that I had been through a relationship kind of like Rose that didn't work out, like a divorce or something, and I wasn't married at that point in time. I wrote Backside of 30 from observation because I had friends who had been through major breakups and divorces and so forth, and that's where I wrote it from observation.
So from there, what happened?
Well, in these ensuing years, we had 30 some odd hits over all these years, beginning with those handful that we've talked about. And when I started in the business, my goal was to be able to produce a body of work and to have longevity, to be around as long as I wanted to be. And I've been blessed to have achieved both of those goals. Here we are 40 some years later, and people still come to see us on the road.
What is the hardest part of being a musician and an artist?
Well, for me now, I'm 75 years old. By the time this airs, I'll probably be 76 if I make it there. For me now, I still love doing the shows, but I'm getting weary of the travel. Everybody thinks it's a big party the whole time from the time you leave your driveway till you come back, and it's not that way, at least for us. Never has been. And so the travel is a little wearying, but it's fine. I'm blessed to be able to still do it.
I've talked to a lot of artists that have been on the road, and a lot of people think it's glamorous. It's a lot of hard work.
Oh, it is, yeah. For really a relatively short period of time in front of the people and actually doing what you're doing, which is to sing, in my case. And that's the same with recording. That's my favorite part of all of this is to record. And that's the thing you get to do the least amount. is to record.
During your years, have you had any struggles with your faith or something that has just really taken you back?
I have everyday struggles just like everybody, but I've been blessed from the time I was born until this very moment. And I look back over my life and see that the steps I've taken in my life, all of the different things I've done to make a living and all that, I was supposed to do. And for the purpose of getting and sharing what I know now and what I share with people. But all of those steps I have taken were ordained by God. I believe that.
So what if somebody's listening to you today, what would you say that, that is questioning what God is doing in their lives, going through those steps?
Get in the Word every day. Every day, get in the Word. And because the answers will be there. I read through the Bible at least once over the course of a year, the way I do it. And it amazes me, even though I've read all these passages multiple times, I always find something new in any particular passage that I read on a daily basis. And it's amazing how often, whatever you're going through that moment, you will come across in the Word that day. It amazes me still.
When I was listening to you on the Opry, you were speaking truth to the audience, and we're going to talk about that when we come back.
All right.
John, what was it like the very first time you stepped on to the Opry stage?
It was an amazing moment. I grew up like so many other people listening to the Opry. My dad was a fan of the Opry and a country music fan. In fact, we found out years later, he had the first opportunity to be on the Opry stage calling a square dance. He had a little square dance group in eastern Kentucky where he grew up. And somebody saw them at a fair or whatever in Lexington, and he was invited to come to the Opry, but they just wanted him to come. They didn't want the group to come, and he wouldn't go without the group being able to go. So I've always said I could have been on the Opry much sooner if he'd have taken them up. At any rate, I admire the integrity that he had by turning them down. But I grew up listening to it with him, never dreaming I'd ever be on that stage. In fact, it wasn't necessarily even a desire. Again, I moved to Nashville only because I got the job in radio. I didn't come for music. But again, it just shows you how God can ordain a different plan for you. And I ended up on the Opry. My first guest appearance was on July 5th, 1980. I came across that data the other day on July 5th in my little devotional book that I use every day to remind me that that's when my first appearance was. And Jim Ed Brown was the first to introduce me on the Opry stage as a guest. Got my name wrong. He called me John Thomas Conley. Because Earl Thomas and I started at the same time, and he got confused. And then I became a member of the Opry in 1981, February 7th of 81.
Were you nervous the very first time?
I don't get nervous. I started performing in the fourth grade. First performance ever, it was in the fourth grade for the school assembly. Love Me Tender was the song I did, first song I ever committed to memory. It was a hit then, by the way, if you can do your calculation on the age. Well, I've already told you my age, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, I got over my nerves all through school. And I wasn't really nervous. I was excited to be there, but not nervous.
Now, when we watched you on the Opry, and I said this earlier, you spoke Jesus. Mm-hmm. And I just thought it was wonderful to hear, because a lot of people aren't talking about Jesus.
Not only not talking about it, but are offended if when people do talk about it. And I want to be a part of helping folks get past that, I hope. Because if we don't get past that, we are doomed to fail. I believe the country will fail, the world will fail. I believe we're in the last days. That's my own personal belief. Many people feel that way as well. The evidence is all around us and increasing every day. The scales on people's eyes that don't see the evil that is being perpetrated on us here in the nation and around the world, and doing nothing about it. Not only doing nothing about it, but voting and pushing to make it worse. And that is just so frustrating to me. So I want to be a part of anything I can do to help turn that around and give us some more time, I hope.
You have a huge platform to share Jesus.
I don't know if I did this song the night you were there, but I've been doing a song that Merle Haggard wrote 50-some years ago called Jesus Take a Hold.
You did
Okay,
sing that.
and I do it just about, if I'm on the Opry a couple of times in the weekend, I do it at least one of those times and do it at all the live shows. He wrote this song 52 years ago as a commentary on the Vietnam War, when the nation was once again in turmoil. And but when I heard it, after a tribute show to Merle when he passed away, I realized that it speaks so well to the things we're going through right here in the 2020s. But it does provide the answer. That's the thing that attracted me to it. And we recorded it. It's on one of our albums, and I love the song. And I close every show with Amazing Grace, which is my favorite song of all time in all formats. So
I love what the Lord is doing in your life. Take me back on a few memories of the people that you've met through your journey, the legends and the artists. And
one of the neat things about the Opry, and one of the things again I'm grateful for, is I got to do the Opry for a lot of years with some of the icons no longer with us, the Roy Acuffs and Minnie Pearls and Bill Monroe, Jim Ed Brown, Little Jimmy Dickens. First songbook I ever bought was Little Jimmy Dickens Songbook #1. And years later got him to sign it for me. But I'm thankful I got to do it with some of those icons in the business. And now I'm among this. Now I'm one of the seniors.
Now you're an icon.
Yeah. No, well, I don't know about the icon, but I'm a senior now, as they were when I started out there.
Do you have any funny memories or anything that you can think of?
Well, I don't know how funny it is, but it was one I treasure. Mr. Acuff, a lot of times if you were on the Opry, his segment of the Opry, and you hadn't done your signature song, he would bring you back to do it. And so he did that with me one night, and I said, okay, I'll do it if you'll wear my glasses. And he stood beside me and wore my rose-colored glasses while I sang a piece of the song. And somebody in the crowd took a Polaroid of it and later sent it to me, and I treasure that. That was great.
That's wonderful. Where has God taken you?
Well, we are working now on a second gospel CD. I've had one out. First one was out in 2004. Combination of songs out of the hymn book and Southern gospel. Songs, though, that all have a distinctive melody and a distinctive message, which is one of the things I miss about church today. Some of the praise and worship music doesn't compare, in my opinion, to songs out of the hymn book that preached to all of us. So this new album will be another combination of some of that. Some of the new songs there'll be new songs, but again, they'll have a distinctive melody. They won't be one line repeated 48 times. I don't like that. And then some classic hymns and gospel songs, again, to help spread the word. That's really all I'm thinking about. I'm not even thinking about new country songs right now. Nothing but gospel.
Well, will you be on the road this year?
Yeah, we're on the road as we speak. Not as much as we have been, a little bit, but we're still out there. People still want to hear us sing, and I'm thankful for that.
I mean, your voice is just gorgeous.
Thank you.
Will you sing just real quick, Amazing Grace, just a little bit of it before we close?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see.
John, thank you so much. What a blessing you are.
Thank you.
To me and to everybody and everyone that you touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My friend, are you looking at life through rose-colored glasses? The Lord Jesus wants you to take them off and see that He is the light of the world. Do it today. This is today's Nashville. This is faith.
Cornerstone Television wishes to thank all our faithful viewers whose consistent prayers and financial support have made this program possible.